All right. It is March Madness 2024 here in the Konabos world. And I've asked on the last few videos that I've done on Selection Sundays to send me your founders so we can tell their stories. And Squiz has taken us up on that offer in a very big way. Here on, I think, Monday morning Australia time, we have the Squiz founder, JP. So, JP, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, g'day, Matt, and thank you for inviting me. It's terrific.
Absolutely. So, what has it been like from your point of view? We haven't worked with Squiz yet. We do work with DXPs, and maybe in the future we will, now that we know each other in such an intense way. But from your point of view, what has it been like hearing about this Konabos March Madness thing? And your team seems to have really taken it on in such a fun way. What has been kind of your vantage of this?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's the team. So the team has picked it up, and I think part of the culture of the organisation is one where everyone internally seems pretty passionate about what we do. I think we've some of our values are all about working together and succeeding together and those kinds of things, and they really live that. And as a result, they pull each other in, including me. So that's part of the reason why I'm here today. It's like, let's just join in here. Let's just get this message out. They're all very proud of what they do and keen for others to hear it.
Yes. Well, no, thank you very much. Why don't we tell the world a little bit about, before we get into Squiz, what's your backstory, JP? What's a little bit of your elevator pitch history of your story?
I've been doing this for a while. So I wasn't originally an IT person. I was actually a neuroscientist before I started getting into this, but that's not really cool to claim that anymore, I suppose, because 25 years ago, myself and another fellow, Steve Barker, decided to start helping people build websites. We were pretty enamored with the internet and what you could do with it. We thought this is changing everything in the way the world communicates. But we saw there was a bit of a gap. And the gap was that people couldn't actually manage content themselves. They had to rely on others to do the edits, and that took the power away from the organizations. So we saw an opportunity to make a content management system, and we did that nearly 25 years ago now. So we made an open source content management system called Matrix, and that grew. And then we kept on adding capability to it until eventually now everything's been rebuilt through multiple iterations. We have a full SaaS product, which is a complete DXP called the Squiz DXP.
Wow. So how did you, I can hear the story, the familiar story you hear with those in the DXP, previously the CMS world, about the difficulty in managing content with websites. We always hear about needing too many technology folks to get it done. But as a neuroscientist, how the heck did that happen? I get the case, but how did that merging happen?
Complete fluke. I was actually planning to start a medical degree, started working part-time, as everyone needs to do it those days. You've got to pay some bills, don't you? And when I first saw the internet with all the beeps and squeaks when people dial up, I was just got that moment, this is going to change absolutely everything, and I just have to be involved. So I rolled up my sleeves and started doing that. Began to teach myself coding, those kinds of things, worked with others, and began to see that impact, began to see that change. It's been a hell of a ride.
And we would be remiss if we didn't say you do have an Australian accent. Is that where the company fully started? Was it started there in, I think you're in Sydney?
Correct. I have in Sydney, and that is exactly where we started. So we started in Sydney. We began to grow throughout Australia. And then some years, so we're actually quite strong throughout the Asia Pac region, so Australia, New Zealand, mainly English-speaking customers that we work with. But then our next step was over to the UK, set up in London, began to grow there, set up some operations also in Poland, which sort of helped us service that territory. And then the next big move was when we moved across to the US a few years ago now, but we've begun to really sort of grow and increase our footprint over there now. So taking on the world.
And 25 years is quite a long time in tech.
Yeah. Sure is.
What kinds of customers did you start servicing? Like, what were their industries? Were there friends who had companies building? And kind of, has that changed through the years in your focus on the kind of customer you go after?
Yeah, actually, I think the most when we began at the very beginning, it was sort of smaller businesses and any work that you could kind of get. But there was a really significant shift about a year into the operations, where we saw two operations, one for a government department. This government department is an art gallery, the Art Gallery of New South Wales. And another one was a global multinational, a group called Tyco. I don't think that name's well known now, but at the time they were top 10 companies in the world. I believe the US-based company. I believe their CEO went to jail for embezzling money or something or other. The company got broken up, so we don't quite know it that way, in the same way. But what was important is we saw in Tyco's case, they had many, many websites that they needed to build. And in the case of Art Gallery of New South Wales, they were a department that had to meet certain publishing requirements, but had very little skills internally, technical skills, to being able to build stuff. And we saw some commonality between those two situations. We're saying many sites, can you make it easy? And organizations with low skills, can you make it easy? And we thought we'd start to build some software that would enable small, leaner teams to being able to control things, but still give governance control to an organization that might need to look after many sites. So in terms of the customers that we work with now, we still work a lot with government. And one of the reasons why that's effective is because if we work with someone like state government or multiple local government departments, there's still this desire for control, but often their teams don't have so many technical skills. They're kind of like, I need a way of being able to still build useful sites. I still need to integrate with multiple systems. I need to serve people online well. But can you do it in a way that's not just all about developers building everything? So that's one part of it. The second sort of groups of customers that we work with are those that are much more transactional in the systems that they work with. So if I go to one extreme, I'll take someone like higher education or universities. They've got hundreds of systems that they need to work with and that you need to plug into so the student experience online becomes seamless. That's part of what our tool set's good at. It's about making a seamless experience, even though you're working across multiple different technologies that you might already have. And it's one of the reasons why CMS is only part of the way our DXP works. So tools like search and integration and other elements are important, and it means you make a better digital experience at the end of the day.
Yeah, so the interesting thing for me being a part of this March Madness thing is this year we had anonymous nominations. Last year I just threw 16 partners we work with on a grid and let the whole thing happen that's happening now, but this year we tried to stretch it. And this was the first time, which is shocking for me, the first time I had heard of Squiz. And then you start to just, it starts to hit you. The intensity early on, I keep saying they've been bringing it. And then all of a sudden I saw, I think it was the Gardner Quadrant. I was like, oh, there's Squiz. So
Yep.
has the growth been, how planned has this growth been over the 25 years? Has it been a lot of entrepreneurial catching opportunities and jumping on them? Or, I mean, a 25-year company is really built to last in many ways. So you must have been very well and planned on kind of the approach you were going with.
Yeah, so I think there's been a step change a few years ago in our performance, which is important. So maybe if I talk through the history, because we had that open source background, I mentioned our first content management system we released as open source. The revenue that we created actually came from professional services. So we offered professional services and did the implementation of the solutions that we built ourselves. And that's one of the reasons why we became very strong in our home turf, but not so well known internationally, because we didn't build partner networks and we didn't do those kinds of things. So we made good technology, worked really well for our customer base, but I think places like the US just won't have heard of us. A few years ago, as the company's evolved and changed, a few years ago, we began the journey of moving everything to SaaS. We built out our SaaS platform and the way the offering works with third-party technology. So we've fully embraced composability as an idea. And it allows organizations to, as we say, come as you are. So come as you are, build brilliant digital experiences fast on a platform that embraces change. That's the way we explain ourselves. We can use the tech that you already got, you're already using, the skills that you already have, and then augment them with some of the digital experience tools that we have on our SaaS platform. That has been attractive to partners. We've adapted our model to support working with partners, and I think that's why we're beginning to be heard of much more. And you say, who is Squiz? Where do they appear? Why are you hearing about them? That's exactly why.
Well, here in the New York metropolitan area where I live, I was joking to some of your marketing folks that we had this company called The Wiz, which was it sponsored a lot of the local professional sports teams, and they had Nobody Beats The Wiz. I was saying nobody beats the Squiz in this one. You brought up an interesting shift that we're seeing industry wide, really, and I tend to ask when I have the opportunity to talk to founders and those leading those decisions. But this whole idea of really moving from these more monolithic, purpose-built, very highly integrated systems where one company provides that whole stack,
Yeah.
to this composable, headless, sometimes you hear hybrid headless, best of breed. Was that shift, when we look back, it sounds great. Was that a sea change for you? Did you have to completely change your technology or how you went about doing business?
100%. Right. So it was very much a conscious decision. We made it some years ago. And I think part of the reason why we made that decision is there was kind of two halves to Squiz some years ago. There was the content management side, and then there was a search engine side. So we have another product called Funnelback. And one of the important things about that search engine is it works with any system. It doesn't matter what your digital experience is or the systems you're trying to index. So we're kind of already used to working with other technologies in our philosophy, our mindset, our culture. The sorts of solutions that we built, require often a lot of integration. So the second thing that we did that I think was quite different to the other DXPs in the market was we included an integration platform as a service, an iPaaS. So it's a fully featured iPaaS built into the DXP. You can use it independently of the other features if you want, but it helps quickly integrate with other technologies you might already have. And that really committed us to this path. We already had the belief, but it really committed us to the path of let's make every piece of the DXP be able to work with whatever technology you already have or might want to use. And the reason for that, the reason why we went down that path is because we actually say, we believe that people in many ways actually do want one piece of software that can build everything for you. The ideal world would be is if you could pick any of the DXP vendors and it did everything you wanted in every scenario. But the reality is it doesn't, right? Often the technologies are, sometimes they're expensive, sometimes they've been acquired by different vendors and they don't always work really smoothly together. Sometimes the use cases don't suit your particular use case, or you're already forced to use technology that's been acquired in your environment or some sort of legacy that you have to deal with. And when you bump up against any of those boundaries, that's the point you start to feel frustrated. You're like going, now I'm stuck, I'm locked in. So on one side, it was kind of great if you had one tool set that did everything, but then it creates this feeling of being stuck and locked in. And then people went, hey, I can move an awful lot faster without having to wait for IT to approve something or be stuck with those systems by picking these various specialized applications, these niche applications that do certain jobs well. I do search well, I do content management well, I do some part of analytics well, I do some part of testing well. I want to take those things and I'm going to stitch them together and try to build my own DXP with them. And that's great to a point, but we do recognize that there are also challenges too. Once you've actually put them together and you've built your own DXP, especially if you're a larger organization, maintenance can become a challenge. Security can become a challenge. Records keeping and governance can become a challenge. Dealing with all the different types of users that you have can become a challenge. You might suit some users and then you realize, hey, the guy's responsible for compliance or IT, or you've built silos for different areas of the business because people are using different solutions. Those can become problems. So you need technology to help harmonize that. And that's what our DXP tries to do.
Yeah, it's very interesting because you were talking about you kind of founded the company with another individual, and I'm guessing you were the business person, and was the other individual the technical person?
Other way around, actually. So he was as he used to say, he'd go catch the bears and I'd skin them. So he'd go find the business and I'd have to find a way of making it happen with the teams internally. So that's changed a bit now, I think, over time. So I'm now much more in front of customers.
Yeah, and to that point, when we have these kinds of discussions, I feel like we're kind of preaching to the converted. We understand the business cases of composable and the benefits and all that. When you're speaking to customers who might be in higher education or healthcare or a lot of these industries, do you find that
utilities, finance goes on?
Yeah. Do you find they really understand a lot of these deeper technical things, or do you kind of feel them out to see how deep you need to go into your your toolbox and analogies to explain it? Or like you said, is it really just creating a harmonized technology that allows them to get to work on doing their job?
That is absolutely the way you explain it. Like, so you actually help solve the problems, like harmonize the technology at the end. You don't often get much of an opportunity to explain composability, the complexity of it, certainly not at the beginning. And that's because the level of understanding is very varied. Some people are more technical and do get it, others are not. And so you have to kind of start the journey wherever they are, which is going back to that come as you are message. That's also true for being able to understand, if I don't want to stay in a world where I'm forever building and rebuilding solutions, which is something that a lot of people do resonate with. They say, I build a new site every however many years. I go through that pain because I've got to a point that maintenance is difficult. It's time for something new, and I'm going to start again and rebuild it. If you're speaking to someone that understands that pain, and you can show them there actually is another path where you can continuously improve and you don't have to start again each time, that normally resonates. They're normally keen to hear that and understand, what do you mean and how does that actually work? And that provides the opportunity to explain the story.
So my last formal question is about competitors, because we're in a March Madness. We have to talk about them both in the shallow and the deep.
Yep.
It's funny that you're going up against in the Final Four Kentico, because that's probably the kind of solution you might come up against in the world. But I think what I found from doing this is it's almost that Scott Brinker Martech landscape thing. There are so many companies across this sphere. If you think integrated DXPs or best of breed solutions across, how does Squiz stand out, differentiate itself against its competition and just this world, this ecosystem that just 100 in our March Madness?
Yeah, right. So that's quite right. There is so much. I think the Scott Brinker analogy is quite right, or illusion is quite right, because it's absolutely crazy. I think the come as you are message is part of it. So normally people say, I've already got this tech in place and I'm struggling to make sense of digital experience across that. So I'm bumping into issues or challenges as a result. That's the opportunity for us to explain to them how we can help. Sometimes it might be improving the search experience across the entire organization as a starting place. Another might be building a portal so that people have access to their different solutions internally. Sometimes it might be something like, I want to build a news site as part of the communications team, but I know internally we have multiple CMSs used by different areas of the business. I don't know how to herd that information and aggregate that information. People might have picked tools and CMSs that make the content editing easy, but now they're saying, how do I take that and use that again in different locations and govern it properly, despite the fact it's looked after by parts of the business I have no control of. Universities, that's a common scenario for, as you might imagine. That's the place where we come in. So we see those pain points and we can normally talk to them about those. And once we begin that conversation, they just realize one problem leads to the next, one to the next, and then they begin to step back and realize that this is a holistic problem. It's not, these are all symptoms caused by the fact that you don't have an architecture that helps you look after your entire digital experience and harmonize the tools that you're already using or might want to use in the future.
That was my last formal, serious question. My last fun one. What has it been like as the founder of this 25-year-old company, and seeing the way they've hit our little contest, but have actually raised it up to places that are all over the place, and then seeing that video that was done. I mean, yeah. It seems like it's which was my hope. It's creating like an esprit de corps inside organizations to have something like we can finally say we're for something, as opposed to saying why we're better than others, right? Like, what has it been like seeing this happen with your team?
I love it. And I love it because I actually genuinely think they do that every day. Like, that is actually the culture of so many of them within the organization. I mentioned our values right at the beginning. One of them is winning together. I think it's absolutely true. The way people work across time zones, across their different teams, being for something. I love the way you said that. Like, I actually very much think that's the way we operate and think internally. It's not about knocking down the competition. It's actually about helping the customers succeed. And we think we've got a genuinely effective approach for helping those customers succeed. So you don't need to take anyone down. We just need to move forward, and that creates energy.
Well, JP, I really appreciate you coming on, and I really appreciate Squiz and how exquisite they've been in this tournament. So thank you very much.
Terrific, Matt. Lovely to meet you.